often you can hear an idea and think, well, how did that impact upon the world? How did that make an impact? And there is no doubt that social Darwinism had an impact on the world in various ways. The first one I would talk about is the robber the robber barons, is the robber barons. My grammar's gone completely to pot. In the USA. Spencer was incredibly popular in the USA. He used to go on speaking tours over there. It was one of his ways of making a lot of money. He sold a lot of books. He had a lot of engagements. And he became the favoured theorist of people like, who have we got here, Andrew Carnegie, industrialist, financier, and philanthropist, a believer in the fit and respectable society. What does anyone know about Carnegie?
He's a steel baron.
Yeah. Very wealthy. Anything else?
He believed in social Darwinism.
He certainly did.
Everybody out of the way.
Yeah. And yet, Carnegie Hall, libraries, you know, programs of improvement. Even if you go to places like Dunfermline in Scotland, which is where Carnegie was born, you will find part of the Carnegie philanthropic enterprise. Now, basically, for people like Carnegie, and who are the fellows that developed the railways? The Rockefellers were bankers, and who are the railway mob? Come on, help! Aviva, help me! Yeah. Okay, well, you have a think about that and then come back to me. Because as you can tell, my grasp of US history is not all that it could or should be. These guys, they believe in unfettered capitalism. They believe that there should be no intervention. They believe that capitalism is sorry, yep. Vanderbilt, that's one, yep, yep. Definitely one of the robber barons. So Darwinism gives them a biological argument that justifies nobody interfering with their business, with them being able to do what the hell they wanted when they wanted. It allows them to, crush unionism, if that's what they want to do. It argues that the market should be unimpeded, because that is nature. That is the way that nature is. And yet you get people like Carnegie who put millions and millions of dollars into philanthropic enterprises. Now that is because he believes that sometimes capitalism does a bad deal with people that have talent. So he wants to provide a form of safety net to those workers that he regards as respectable, those workers that he believes want to improve themselves. So he will build institutes with libraries to encourage these individuals to improve themselves. So we actually see a bit of the social Lamarckism that is inherent in Spencer coming out in the philanthropic exercises of individuals like Carnegie. But there is no doubt, whether we call it social Darwinism or social Spencerianism, that it validates the activities of the robber barons. Underlying it all, this notion of laissez-faire. Let it be. Let the market do its stuff. Don't interfere. Now, it has to be said that we've already seen that Spencer himself had this utopian bent, this belief that we would become, population growth would just naturally decline as we as organisms became more and more complex. For Spencer, unfettered capitalism was just a phase. In the end, we'd end up with this civilized anarchy where government was unnecessary and all people would be able to get what they needed. But that was sometime in the future. The other places to look, and we've already talked about this in some detail, is the social Darwinian state. that non-regulatory Malthusian state, where there is no welfare network to pick up the needy, where minimal provision leads to the development of these quasi-prisons, the workhouses, that were designed to deter people from seeking relief and to imprison those who could not care for themselves. But it is also true that as this is panning out, and the word race becomes applicable to all sorts of different groups, not just skin colours, but countries, the Germanic races, the Anglo-Saxon races, the state recognises that in the competition between the Germanic races and the Anglo-Saxon races, it's bloody nonsense when you think about it. I mean, you know, genetically closely related, incredibly, but this was the way that the rhetoric panned out. They realised that in this battle that they need to keep a healthy population. And this is the point at where social Darwinism is going to tip into things like eugenics and into militarism. But it could also cut in other ways. It could cut towards pacifism. Ernest Haeckel, who we'll see later on, was a great proponent of both Darwin and social Darwinism. He's a philosopher that was said to deeply influence Nazi philosophy, and yet he was a pacifist. And the reason that he was a pacifist is that he believed that war provided negative selection. What was that?
Sorry.
That's okay. So I thought it was someone outside. Negative selection. In other words, the fittest young men, the biologically fittest young men, are the bravest, go to war, most likely to get killed. So there was this concern that warfare itself would have this negative Darwinian impact upon the race. And then, as I've alluded already, there is the notion of the dying races, where the struggle for existence is seen as a struggle between the vigorous Anglo-Saxons and the less vigorous indigenous peoples of the empire. And here, it could be used to justify all sorts of different things. It could be used to justify the level of violence deployed against indigenous peoples. It could be used to justify colonialism, particularly the scramble for Africa. Now, there were complexities. People like Wallace, who believed that the Dyaks were deeply civilized and incredibly sophisticated individuals, and increasingly anthropology will go into a relativist realm. So these are some of the major impacts that we're going to be looking at in the future lectures. We're going to also be looking at sex, sexual selection. We're going to pay closer attention to eugenics. We're going to look at the Nazis. And underneath all of this will be the notion that Darwinism has huge impacts. And that's it.